Hey, welcome back to the Doctor's Den. I would like to introduce today Max Saltzman. Max is currently a customer success manager at Upstay by Plus Grade, but on his CV, Max's area of expertise is that of a customer support specialist, which is a title he's earned from over 8 years of success and support experience with various startups, many of which he was the first support or success team member in the company, and he found himself establishing the infrastructure for growth. He's also a proud father of 3 goofballs and the Dodax to many more goofballs. He is a comic, video game D&D nerd, and is also into woodworking, which seems to be a common thread amongst customer success people. So Max, welcome.
Hi, Dr. D. Nice to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
No, I appreciate it. No, seriously, thank you for coming onto my little show here. Just to give you a brief of what we're doing, I like to put some of my friends on a metaphoric couch and really try and learn from them about their experiences both in work and in life and how they've grown and developed as an individual, and try and use that as a mechanism for my own experience, my own learning, but also to allow other people to learn a little bit more about how they might get into customer success, for instance, or whether it's a worthwhile thing to go to school or not, and why, and things like that. So this is sort of directed at people who are maybe debating school or just after school, but it's really applicable to anybody at any stage in their career. And it's really about finding some sense of self, as it were, and direction in our lives. So having given that wonderful introduction, I'm wondering if you could just give me just a very brief, hey, I went to school, here's where I went, here's why I chose what I chose to do there, and here's what I did afterwards, sort of like until more modern times.
Okay, sure. After high school, I came to Israel to study, and I had applied to Yeshiva University, basically, as my, that's where I was planning on going. After learning in Israel for the year and a half, I really wanted to, stay here, make Aliyah, do university here. But at my parents' insistence, I went back to American, university, get an American degree. It's always, a safe thing to fall back on. And I spent 3.5 years at YU, and I enjoyed YU. I had a nice time there. But when I got there, they said, okay, what do you want to major in? And I had a few ideas of what I wanted to do with my life, but I wasn't really quite ready to set my life in stone. Like, I was still trying to figure out who I was, especially after such a life-changing experience coming to yeshiva for a year and a half to all of a sudden now have to, okay, what am I doing for the rest of my life? It's a bit of a, shock. So I asked around and, asked my friends and some educators, I said, what should I do? And they go, study psychology. Everyone studies psychology. I'm like, okay, I'll do psychology, because apparently it's the go-to fallback for if you don't know what you want to do. And people were telling me, you can do anything with a psychology degree, but right, you can do anything because you have to do something. Yeah. You got to go somewhere, so study psychology and you'll go somewhere. So I did psychology. I took a bunch of very random and odd, what's it called? The courses where you basically have to take those courses, like core courses, but they aren't actually part of psychology. I had to take like a music course. I got my degree in psychology, made Aliyah, and couldn't do anything with it because what they don't tell you. And I asked around about making Aliyah, what degree, blah blah blah, because I knew I was coming back. I knew I was making Aliyah. And everyone I spoke to never told me that in Israel, psychology is so specific that if you want to do, social work, you need a social work degree. You can't do a psychology degree. Like, psychology is only for psychologists. Social work is for social work, and it's very difficult to, transfer over that kind of psych degree because it's not as tailored here. It's not as specified in Israel.
Right, here in Israel, it's really super specific. If you want to get a degree here, it's like super specific, right? It's not even like I could do a broad degree and sort of focus on something. Here, you choose what you're doing right away, whether it's social work or psychology or musicology or English, whatever you're doing, like that's your degree. Like that's what you're doing with the idea that you're going to go into that field. So it's very different.
Yeah, no, it makes so much more sense too, because like also it's after you've done the army, after you've taken a little bit of a break, the individuals going to university in Israel already have more of an idea of who they are as an adult and where they what their, you know, plan is going through adulthood for the rest of their, for the rest of their lives, more or less. And people change degrees, people change careers, that happens, but to start just confused is, you know, it didn't help me. I think that whatever I definitely wanted to talk more about university life and the benefits of university with you, because as a professor you definitely you can definitely impart the other side of my my thoughts on it.
I have no problem. We could do that. Do you want to do that now, and then we'll move on to the rest of your story? So, based on what you're saying, it seems like your university experience was less than stellar, and it wasn't something that you've necessarily found a great amount of worth in, just based on what you're saying. So I'm curious, what was that like for you?
So the most I got out of college was I became the president of the Israel Club, which when I got there was an Israel Club, which wasn't so active. So then a friend of mine who got to YU before me started the Israel Advocacy Club, and his Israel Advocacy Club was doing a lot more advocacy type work for very proactive type of rallies and things, whereas the Israel Club was just talking about random Yom Ha'atzmaut events and not random whatever, you're talking like the typical Israel themed type of event, but they weren't so proactive in their event planning. So the Israel Advocacy Club, which I took over, ended up becoming larger than the Israel Club. And we ended up basically kind of overtaking the Israel Club. They merged the two clubs together because the university said we don't need two separate clubs for this. So we merged them together, and then the Club became the largest club on campus. We were running events, 3 or 4 times a month. We had the largest Shabbaton, or the second largest Shabbaton, only under the the official university big Shabbaton that they had, that's run by the student unions. And we were running rallies, protests, big events, big speakers, and I learned from that a lot of leadership skills, a lot of, like, I made a board, I was running a board, I was looking for funding, I was doing so much more life building skills than going to my intro to music class was helping me with, because it was one of the core classes I needed to take for a degree in psychology.
Right. So that makes sense. Okay, so basically you're saying in terms of education wise, you didn't necessarily find great worth in what you were learning, and you found more of your education to be the extracurriculars that you were doing. So, I mean, in high school, were you also really into extracurriculars, or were you more into, would you find that that was sort of true there as well, or?
In high school, my freshman year of high school, I started a recycling club with a friend of mine. And then we got a little bit of funding from the high school. We went and we bought like recycling bins and some like can crushers, and we basically just set up some bins and got a few volunteers to, once every 2 days, to go and empty the recycling bins, bring them to the office, or bring them to our room which we were working in, and we would just recycle a bit. And it was something that was something missing from the school, and we saw, okay, this is there's no reason not to have a recycling bin. There's so much waste and so much trash. And then I was on the wrestling team in high school, which I ended up becoming a captain of the team, but that only happened in my senior year. And that was kind of just, I mean, it wasn't real leadership there. That was more just skills and a bit of leadership, I'd say. I definitely learned teamwork. Like, more than leadership, I learned teamwork there. I learned how to, like, lead from the trenches, I'd say, more than actually, like, leading, spearheading, like,
It was more lead by example, like, look, I can do this, you can do this too, kind of leading.
exactly, yeah. It wasn't like full on, like, steering from, like, I wasn't helming the ship. I was rowing with with the rest of the
Right.
guys.
Right. Okay.
But but again, by example. um, and But then also throughout high school, there was, like, I was kind of like thrown into like leadership roles. There was something, I don't remember why this happened, but for some reason they were looking for 4 students to spearhead something, and I got called into an office one day and they're like, Max, you're going to be on this committee if you want to. I'm like, okay. Like, why me? But they put me on a thing when it was I don't remember what it was called, but it was some kind of, we went on to like a seminar weekend learning leadership in Jewish communities, and I really don't even know how I got put there in the first place. Kind of just fell into the leadership, I guess.
So, but in terms of learning, did you find your high school experience to be like a good learning experience as opposed to what you had at Yeshiva University?
I'd say yes. I would in high school I learned to critically think. I learned, like, it was valued when I thought outside of the box. Whereas in university, the main thing that I felt university prepared me for was basically, I would say, understanding what my professors want to hear and spitting back the answers that they want, versus actually thinking on my own and, giving my own 2 cents. Like the professors I had, they wanted this answer done this way, exactly as follows. So I learned how to follow orders, and that is a life skill, joining a workforce and learning how to, follow instructions and do what is expected of you from your, from your managers or from your CEO or from whoever's overseeing you. But I think, if you really want to succeed, if you really want to be a contributor to the growth of your company or the growth of anywhere you are, you still need to think outside the box. And high school helped me think outside of the box. It taught me to think outside of the box a lot. And university, I felt, was very much quelling that. It seemed to me to restrict my creativity in my thought processes.
I think it depends. Here in Israel, it depends on who your teachers are. I think it also depends where you were. But here, at least in the course I teach, one of the things that was really important for me was to be challenged by my students and to say, hey, I disagree with you and here's why. And let's talk about this and let's develop this theory even more, or let's deep dive into these to really get our hands dirty about it. And it seems like your experience was very different. And it wasn't about, really understanding and taking it apart and doing critical thinking about the theory and how it applies in the real world, but like, here's the theory, explain it, make sure you understand it, and show me that you understand it the way I understand it. Which, yes, that's a way to meld a mind, but it's not necessarily the healthy way to meld a mind, especially someone who's going into the workforce. Yeah, I guess one of the questions that would arise from this is, you seem to have found some of your strengths in high school, starting with like leadership and taking on leadership positions. And then how did that sort of develop over time? How do you find yourself engaging with, identifying your strengths and sort of like working with it? And how has that sort of come out to play since you've left school?
Great question. So I feel like I just, fall into leadership roles. Those, have you ever taken one of those, like, what superhero are you kind of quizzes, right?
Yeah.
So for me, my favorite superhero is Nightcrawler from the X-Men. He's by far, and he's like one of the lesser known superheroes. Like, only like nerds know who Nightcrawler is.
I guess I'm a
nerd. you're a good kind of nerd. So every time I took these quizzes, I'm like, I want to be Nightcrawler, and I always get Cyclops, because Cyclops is the leader of the X-Men and natural born. And I'm like, I don't want to shoot lasers from my eyes. I want to, I want to climb up walls and teleport and
I want to poof and poof and poof and poof.
Yeah. Right? And, like, the only time I ever actually got Nightcrawler on the result was when I completely lied, and I said, like, when I'm filling out the form, I have 3 fingers, have blue hair, and was raised in a circus.
Okay, so
every other time it was always Cyclops, and I just.
All right, so like, you've seen yourself in leadership positions. How's that been? Like, what has that done for you?
So when I first met Aliyah and I was looking for something to do, basically my only skill set that was transferable from America was my English. So there was a good there was a good amount of sales roles and customer support roles. Just like customer support being the answering chats, answering emails, kind of like the intro to support type of roles. But entry level, fine, you got to start somewhere. So I did a mix of sales and support. Sales was not my thing, and I ended up just, being more support oriented. It got to a point after doing a couple years of support where I had the opportunity to join a startup as the first support success manager. It was called Graduate. Now it's called Gravity. I was the 10th employee there, and when I started there, there was a lot of gaps to fill. There was a lot of things that needed to fall into place, and I was just okay. I've learned how to kind of bootstrap myself, how to just be put in a situation and take charge of it, right? So that's leadership there. It's learning how to take control and fill the gaps, fill the void.
I mean, it's more personal leadership, isn't it? Like you're not talking about, hey, I was in charge of a group of people, or I created vision for people and said, hey, follow me. You're talking about that sense of personal leadership where I see a problem and I am going to engage my own personal leadership and I'm going to drive us forward because I know what this is about, which in my lexicon, right, in the way I would talk about it, that's really exemplary followership. It's about that critical thinking and taking independent action towards something which leadership has defined as important, but they're not putting their finger on it, and I can do this, and I see the issue and I see the problem. So that's really exemplary followership, but it requires a great deal of personal leadership. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
Yes, that's the perfect description terminology for it. But that directly ends up once your manager, once your CEO or whoever's sitting on top of you sees that personal leadership or that exemplary followership, they see, okay, this is someone who Rosh Gadol, right, sees the bigger picture, and we can trust in them and hope, and they can pass on, they can become the leader that we want to bring in others. So I didn't lead the department there, but I ended up being the bigger brother to the department. I trained everyone. I would be there to, guide them, show them, lead by example, how to do certain interactions with clients, how to take on more difficult clients, the executive or enterprise level clients, and just by
So hold on. So you found yourself essentially mentoring people because of your exemplary followership. It wasn't that they put you in a position of leadership or management. There was a manager, but you essentially found yourself mentoring because of the level of trust that they were placing in you as a result of the way you acted and the fact that you sort of engaged this exemplary followership. They were able to say, hey, we trust Max, and Max is a great mentor, and he's a great example of what it is we expect from these other people as they're coming in. We're going to utilize that in order to build this team.
yeah, that's how it played out. Um, it ended up basically helping me realize that I am more than just a team member. I am someone who can lead by example, can lead from the trenches, can can carry forward people and a team into a higher level of service, higher level of labor.
So how did you use that knowledge, that discovery to sort of direct how you were going to move forward?
So it was like kind of two things happened simultaneously. I was at Graduate for 3 years. I was the first customer success manager there, and then the team grew into having like 10 customer support employees, and I was like the senior of the whole team. Not a team lead by name, but I was clearly taking on more responsibilities. I ended up being very well involved in the dev side of the company, just because whenever there was a bug, it got escalated to me. Whenever there was like a tier 2 or tier 3 customer support question, it was directed to me, and then if I couldn't resolve it myself, I passed it on to dev. So I was talking with the dev team a lot, and they understood that I had a very good grasp of like QA the technical side of issues. Even I wasn't a developer, I couldn't program, but they trusted my input. So on the one hand, one of the developers' father was creating a startup, and he said, you need to get Max to lead your support team. So when I was leaving Graduate, I immediately got called up by my coworker's father and said, I want you to be my support director. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going from literally customer support manager to my new title is support director. And it was a startup. I was the only real support member there, but there was a lot of new skills. But I'll get to that in one more second. But basically, because of this, and at the same time, I realized I was seeing job postings for a sales ninja and a whatever unicorn and all these weird terminologies, and I'm like the only one that I care about is expert, right? I want to be known as an expert. But what is an expert?
Right.
And it's everyone's just self-appointed ninjas, sharks, whatever, and like people are self-appointing themselves as experts too. But people are experts. No, but they're. If I just said, "Oh, I'm an expert in," what that's it. It's everyone's an expert in something, right? If you know something well and you can educate others on that and you can bring new information and new understandings and you can elevate the conversation in something, then you are an expert in that to one degree or another. And I realized I know a lot about customer success and customer support. I've seen a company go from one employee to 10 employees just in the support realm. I've seen scale. I've seen different softwares being used. I've seen different information being used, and I've seen different methodologies being used. I've seen where things go wrong. I've seen where things go right, and I can bring in a high level of customer success, customer support conversation to a new place. And then when I got this offer to be the support director, I'm like, I can do this. I do know about building up a support team. And maybe things are different and there's always room to learn, but I am becoming a self-appointed customer success expert. But then I started and then I started like taking it seriously. I started, okay, there's tons of webinars, there's tons of online courses, there's tons of just documentation on different aspects of any job, of any role. And so I started like reading up a bit and listening to speeches and TED Talks and whatever I could get my hands on that were just help me understand support and success more. And then and then from more and more years of experience, I've built myself over time into a customer success, customer support specialist.
Okay, and how has that sort of given you the opportunity to learn even more? Like yes, you've learned from webinars and stuff like that, but I'm assuming that by even through this deep dive that you've done in customer success and customer support, it's also forced you to learn other skills, other things along the way that were not focused on that, but were really important for your own personal development and probably things that have helped you in like way up like other fields entirely, like family life or D&D or I don't know, take your pick, right? And so like, how has that sort of played out? How has that learning from every opportunity sort of played out for you? And how is it expressed both in your work, but also outside your work?
Great question. So one of the things that I've taken in and other skill sets I've learned is that there's big differences between smaller stage startups and larger startups, or companies that are more well developed or older and have more established.
Better established, right?
Yeah, well developed and
better
established.
established.
And there's also and there's also big differences between selling to other businesses and selling to clients. I started listening to your podcast with Jeff, so I started listening to it. And Jeff is one of my role models in customer success. I worked under him. I mean, this is you know more than I do, or you know as well as I do, because you helped me with my CV. Thank you again for that. Got me the
My
role
pleasure.
with Jeff, and learning. Yeah, no, it was amazing. So you're an expert as well. You're an expert in lots of things. So, but learning under Jeff was phenomenal, and being a follow up, podcast to Jeff's podcast, it's a tough act to follow, because Jeff is one of the top, in my opinion, of you know a large understanding a very large scale, like how a well established, really successful, big business to business company runs their customer success team. But on my side, I have a lot of experience with the smaller startups, like starting slowly and working more either B2B, but also a lot more B2C, dealing with not as high level enterprise. And there's a lot of different methods to implement along the way. And you just have to learn from every job. So every job I've had, whether it was being in a small startup or whether it was working with Jeff at PeerSpot for a huge company that with a crazy enterprise level customers, you always have to learn. You always have to take away something from it. And that's a lesson in life. Dating even, right? I've every time you go on a date, whether it doesn't work, if it doesn't turn out into result in marriage, there's still something you need to take and walk away from. Every life experience is an opportunity to grow and to learn something about yourself. Whether it's something about life you're learning or something about yourself, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, things that you do like, things that you don't like, things that you want to aspire to, things that you want to avoid. There's always something to learn. And so that, is definitely, if as a father now, of my three goofballs, each kid is completely different, and lessons that things that worked for our oldest don't work for our middle, and the third is a completely different, set of rules, and
Okay. All right. So, but
you have to.
here's a question then. I have a question here that comes out of this. Have you found yourself ever using some of the skills that you've learned through your work in your personal life? Like, how has that come out? How's that played out for you? Or vice versa, where you've learned something from one of your kids or from, some interaction you've had in your personal sphere with your wife or with your friends and gone, you know what? This is really relevant in my work. I'm going to try and implement this because it's a great way for me to engage or to interact.
There's a lot of there's a lot of, like, I feel parenting goes into customer success. There's a lot of just like there's understanding. First off, okay, communication, right? Communication is always key. Communication with your spouse, communication with your kids, and learning, to read between the lines, or to obviously the better you can communicate, obviously, but in a place of business, when you're establishing that connection, people are going to, like, especially if you're dealing with American clients versus European versus Israeli versus, so you have to understand the child, what the child's personality is like. Is the child going to just be straight up and upfront with you and say, like, I don't like this doesn't work for me, and then you'd be like, okay, let's find something that does work for you? Or is a child going to say, oh, I don't know, we can try it, and learning how your customer communicates, and learning how to respond to that communication is key. It's about building building a bond, and it's about, for me, and I don't know if this is taking the conversation a little bit of a different place, but my ideal level of being a customer success manager is being fully integrated into the client's family. You are a part of their team. So, like, if I was on a call with a client and, like, a group of clients, or I'm sorry, one client, but like a few individuals from that company, and I'm on the call with them talking about, a solution, and then they start having an internal conversation about, some insider information, but something that's like, well, we're having this issue here, and there's this problem here, but me being included and not, them having a conversation in front of me means that they trust me, that I'm a part of their unit, that they don't see me as an outsider.
But they also see you as part of the solution, right? It's not just that they see you as part of the unit. They see you as someone who may be able to give them insight in how to resolve this issue, and they trust that if they're providing you with this information, it's not going to come and bite them in the butt later on. And it seems to me like what you're also saying is, yeah, okay, it's not just about that bond, but it's about looking at how you can sort of both, how did Jeff say it? He said, provide value, but also act like this is about acting humanly, like the humanity. These are people, and these are people who have real needs and real wants and real issues with where are we spending our money and how. And if you can't provide them value, and if you can't show them that you care about what they care about, how could you possibly like create that relationship that will allow you to be a better customer success provider? Right?
Exactly. There's a part of customer success is always thinking about, obviously my main prerogative is helping my company. So how do I do that? Well, as Jeff mentioned, happy customers retain, it's cheaper to maintain a customer than to find new customers. But a part of that is also, it's not just retaining them, it's upselling to them, right? If you have different levels of packages and you have a client that's using package level A, as you are, a part of these conversations that they're having, as they trust you to listen in on their problems, you can say, you know what, we actually have package B, which could help you, and they trust you. They've already established trust. They already know that you have their interest in mind, and they're gonna be able to say, you know what, let's do it. Let's try it. We trust you, Max. You know what our business needs. You know how we can do better, and we're in this together. So yeah, let's try package B. And so there's a lot of trust, and this is like being a dungeon master. It's a lot of building trust also. It's a building trust with your players, right? Being a dungeon master is, I want to tell the story. I have I don't want to railroad, right? Railroading is forcing the players to take a path. I can't railroad my clients. I can't railroad my players. That's not something I want. I want my clients to be able to choose what's best for them. I want my players to be able to choose what's best for them. I want them to tell the story that fits their wants and their desires. My job as customer success and as a DM is to find solutions that work within the boundaries that I'm given. So, as a customer success manager, there's only so much my company can do. There's only so many packages and offers, and if you want to fly to the moon while using our product, I can't help you there. I don't have a rocket ship.
I can't do that. I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to find.
Can't do it.
Right.
You've gone into Dungeons and Dragons, so I wanna take us there for a minute. Dungeons and Dragons is a role-playing game. Now, you DM, but you also play. How have you found role-playing sort of to help you in your relationships, both as a customer success manager, but also like with your kids? And I'm not talking about, playing the game with your kids, but I'm talking about the role-playing aspect of it. How have you found that to sort of play a little bit in your life?
It's interesting. So the role play definitely, it definitely helps from the business side, because you're putting yourselves in the company, or you're becoming a part of their team. I have to remove myself from being Max, the customer success manager at Upstate by Plus Grade, and I have to put myself as Max, the colleague to this hotel chain that needs to solve a problem, and I need to fully integrate myself into what their needs are. And there's that mindset switch. With family, on the one hand, the role play is, I would feel like I need to separate Abba and husband Max from stressed out work Max. And it's like, okay, like I'm home now, I'm with the kids, I need to be the father that they need right now because they want someone to play with them. And yeah, you know what, I have things on my plate and I have, other things going on in life, but for me, family is super important, and for me, family comes first all the time. So it's important to be able to step outside sometimes of actual life and just be like, all right, you know what, let's have some family time. And it's difficult. I'm really bad at the role play sometimes of separating work and pleasure, and but there's it's definitely it definitely helps me in being able to keep things separate.
Talking about work-life boundaries, you work from home quite often. How does that sort of play out for you when you're in your house and stuff's going on? How are you finding it to sort of create those boundaries when you have to say to your kids, "Hey guys, sorry, can't do this right now. I'm working."
Yeah, so there's when I work from home, twice a week, and typically I'm like during my work hours, the kids are in school. They're in their programs or whatever. But my work day kind of ends at 3:45 when I need to go pick them up, and that's a pretty short work day. And also sometimes there's meetings that are I need to be at. So sometimes it involves, getting a babysitter even while I'm home, getting, a father's helper to just keep the kids occupied, feed them dinner while I need to be on a meeting. But what it typically means is I go pick up the kids at 3:45, and I'm with them. I'm with them until 6:37 when, we start getting ready for bed, the kids go to sleep, and then I get back on emails. If I need to have a call in that time range, I can try to either figure it out, or often I'll do my best to avoid scheduling calls during that time. But it's a lot of, finding balance, finding a situation that works for you. And luckily at where I am currently, my CEO is super understanding, and he knows I get my work done. So he doesn't mind if I end up needing to split up my day a bit. So I can work until 3:45, take off until 7:38, and then get back on emails. Sometimes I'll supplement my work with just doing longer hours in the office when I get to the office, on Tuesdays or Thursdays, whatever it is. It's about finding balance. You need to obviously do your best, but one of the good things that came out of COVID after all of that, after everything bad that came out about it, was companies are seeing that employees can be trusted to get the job done, even if it's a little bit on their own schedule. Some companies can't have that, so okay, that's a little bit more difficult for them. But in a role where flexibility can be incorporated, it like employees more so than not want to prove that they can be trusted with that flexibility, and so they don't want to take advantage of it because they don't want to lose it. They will make sure to go above and beyond just to make sure that their higher ups, their managers, know that they're trustworthy. They can be trusted.
So I have a question about trust, because you brought up the word trust, like the concept of trust, a few times here. And I think there's a concept or there's a theory by Patrick Lencioni, which is called the trust pyramid. And it basically says that the foundation of getting results, or the foundation of teamwork in general, is based on trust. And that allows for, if you have trust, it allows for effective and mutual conflict, where when you conflict with each other, it's sort of like, yes, we're fighting, but it's not like bad fighting. It's conflict with purpose towards finding mutual understanding, which allows you to sort of commit and allows you to give people a real sense of like, if you've committed, then I can also hold you accountable and we'll get good results. But there's like the negative side to that as well, which is if trust is sort of broken or if it's fragile, then, conflict tends to be sort of really rough and even like not violent, but like harsh and like it doesn't allow for people to feel like they can commit, or when they do commit, they're not really committing, whether it's, I disagree and commit. They're not even doing that. They're just disagreeing and going like, fine, I commit, but I'm not really in it. And then you can't holding them accountable becomes very difficult, and it negatively impacts results. Have you had an experience where trust was broken? Not necessarily where you broke trust, but where trust, like, because you brought it up a few times. I'm wondering if you've had an experience where trust was broken and you saw that play out, where this was bad because trust was broken.
So there was one of the companies I was at, I felt backstabbed in a tremendous way. I was there for a while, and I wanted to grow, and I saw that there was, I want to develop myself, and I went to my manager and said, "Hi, the team, the company's growing, and I think that one of the roles that this company's missing is a junior product manager." And for me, being a product manager, I felt kind of went hand in hand with customer success, because you're speaking with the voice of the customer, right? You understand what the customers want, and you can help your product grow, with the changing needs of the customer, right? So I felt like having a junior product manager that's super connected to customer success would be a great, combination of skills, and would help grow the company in a very good direction. So I brought that to my manager, and she said, "Okay, that's a nice idea. Let's go talk to the CEO." We went to the CEO, and the CEO, for whatever reason, didn't like me. He wanted to fire me, actually. Like, I was at the company for 3 years. He wanted to fire me after like a year and a half, but I was so connected and needed by other departments that my manager, the head of the development team, and a third manager all told him that he couldn't fire me. So whatever, we kind of just worked alongside each other. We weren't like at each other's throats. We just, said hi politely and just went to our own. I went to my desk and just did my work, and I kept my head down around him. So we went to him.
Wait, I have a question.
and
Stop.
he
Hold on. I
said-
have a question. I'm stopping you for a second.
Mhm.
How did that feeling
Sure.
impact your work? Did you feel like it made it more difficult for you to enjoy your work, to do your work effectively? And then we can get back. I'd like to get back to the story quickly.
No, sure. So it gave me a little bit of a bitter taste once I knew that he didn't want me there, but knowing I had the support of my managers, and feeling like the fact that I had 3 managers telling him I was too valuable to just be let go without a reason, and he didn't have a reason. Like, if he's the CEO. If he had a good reason for firing me, he would have fired me. He just, for whatever reason, decided that he didn't want me around. So, but knowing that I had my managers back, that they had my back, was, it definitely kept me motivated, and also it pushed me to prove that I was worth their trust. So I had their trust, and it motivated me to do good for them, not for the CEO necessarily. So then we went to the CEO, and I said, I think that there's a bit of a need now, as the company grows, to have a junior product manager, and I would like to be considered for the role. I think that using customer success and product management together could be great for the company. And he basically said, "We thought about it. There's no need for it. We're not at that stage in our company." So I'm like, "Okay, fine, thank you. Have a good day." And I went back to work. The next week, they announced that they were going to promote a coworker of mine into a junior product manager role. She sat at the desk over from me as a customer success manager, and they promoted her directly into the role that I suggested, but told that the company wasn't doing. And when I spoke to my manager about it, she said she had no idea they were doing this, and like this wasn't like a plan more than a week ago. So the CEO clearly decided, after our talk, to fill this role with a coworker. Now, I don't mind that they didn't hire me, that they didn't promote me into the role.
Not just Phil. Wait, no, hold on. Not just Phil. He literally created the role that you had described, and that you said you'd like, and then broke trust by saying, "Well, yeah, but I ain't gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give it to somebody else," as almost like, "Hey, nudge, nudge. I don't like you." And that's you're literally talking about it. He broke trust with you because he said to your face, we're not even considering that. That's not the direction we want to go in. And then he went, "Oh yeah, but yes it is." And here you go.
Right. So the trust wasn't that I wasn't I wasn't selected for the role. If I'm not the right fit, I get it. But at least validate that it was a good idea, that this is a need the company feels. And while Max might not be the best fit for it, thank you, Max, for thinking about us. Thank you, Max, for thinking about the growth of the company.
Mm-hmm.
and you know, your coworker we think is a better fit for the role, and you know what, I would be a little upset, but I wouldn't have my trust broken. You know, at least they acknowledged that my input was right. But the fact that he told me, bad idea, not gonna happen, and then did it, you know, without like even just a thank you to me for you know, suggesting it. It really felt like, okay, like there's no room for me to I'm not appreciated here, and there's no room for me to grow here. So then what happened was, when I first joined the company, the CEO said right off the bat, he said, whenever you guys are looking for a new opportunity, let me know. I'll be happy to write you all a letter of recommendations. And that was something he told people, you know, whenever you're looking to leave, I'm happy to write you a letter of recommendation. So after that instance, I emailed him along with like my managers, and I basically said, I would really like if I could get, you know, some letters of recommendation from you all for, you know, just so I can see what's available. Because after that I felt like, okay, he clearly doesn't want me here, so I'm gonna find someplace that appreciates me. So after I sent that email asking for the letters of recommendation, the CEO comes into, you know, our workspace, and it was just me and him, and he says, okay, so when are you quitting? And I'm like, well, I'm not quitting yet. I want to see what's available. And, you know, you told me that when I think it's time to, you know, start looking, you can write me a letter of recommendation. So he's like, okay, so I need to know when you're quitting, and then I'll write you the letter of recommendation. And I said, I'm not quitting until I know where I'm going. I have a family. I'm not just gonna quit with nothing in the pipeline. He goes, that's not how it works. You always quit before you find something new. And I'm like, I've never heard that before.
What?
Everyone I know, if they have the choice of quitting, exactly. If you have the choice of quitting, you're going to find something new before you just quit what you're doing. And he's like, that's not how it works. I need you to quit. Tell me when you're leaving, and then we can do this properly. And I go, I'm not quitting. If you want to fire me, you can fire me, but I'm not quitting. And, you know, I'll let you know if and when I quit, but I'm not doing that now. But I would like the recommendation so I could at least, you know, start looking. He goes, I need to do what's best for my company. And I go, well, I need to do what's best for my family. And he goes, well, I don't care about your family. And I go, well, I don't care about your company.
Oh.
And
oh no. Oh
yeah.
wow.
So he fired me on the spot, which was illegal. I left like right away. I actually went to a neighboring store to do shopping because I had to do shopping. And truth is, like, I was kind of happy the way that ended, because, like, if this is how he feels about me and my family, then it's about time I'm out of there. He clearly doesn't want me around and doesn't care about my family. So I went shopping, you know, at a neighboring store, and within like 20 minutes I got a call from him asking me to come back so that way we can, you know, talk about this a bit more rationally. So I go back up, and he basically said, you're going to be let go, but we need you to fill your last month of employment because we need you to teach the rest of the team what you know, because I had a lot of information that wasn't like, you know, it was just, yeah, which was, you know what, I didn't want my coworkers to suffer, so I went for the next month, and I wrote 2 50-page documents based off of just like what my tasks and my roles and how I did certain things, and I literally made like a picture book documentation of like screenshots and instructions, screenshot instruction. But that kind of even cemented in my mind I was really needed here, and you know, if this is going to be how they treat me, then, because normally when they fire you, they just let you go. They just you're fired and you're out, and they'll pay you whatever they need to pay you, and you're not welcome back. But I was going in every day to just, you know, train and
You're a good man, Max. You're a good man.
I didn't want the company to suffer.
I don't know if it was the company, more like you don't want your coworkers and people who I'm assuming you considered friends to suffer because of what was going on between you and the boss. Okay, so to not end on a sad and depressing note, is there anything that I didn't ask you? I know that you have to go. I realize you have another meeting. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you kind of wish we would have talked about, or something that you feel is really important? And if so, how would you have answered that question, or what is it would you like to talk about?
It's a good question. I wish we could have spoken more D&D. I love love talking D&D and but I wish we would have gotten to speak more about just you as one of my players, just to understand, like, we spoke about it briefly, but it would be nice to like talk more about being a dungeon master versus being a player. And you asked the question, but I didn't get to like go into too much detail about it. It's nice to be a player. I feel like there's the concept of a forever DM, someone who's always the DM, and that's like, I like to DM because I want to make sure that there's a game. I want to make sure that we get to play. So I'm happy to DM because I want to make sure that I have that outlet for that enjoyment. But being a player and having the story being like built like around you and around like your character, I feel like that's like so tremendous. But there's a lot of as a player, you have trust in the DM, and the DM needs to trust in the players that they're not going to derail the story completely. It's a lot of mutual trust. It's a story that's built together, right. And that's the same thing with the company. It's my older son plays chess a lot, and I was thinking about this with him, thinking like, what's the most important piece on the board? The most important piece without question is the king. Without the king, there's no game. If the king's gone, the game's over. But the king, even if you double the strength of the king, if you triple the strength of the king, so that the king moves 3 spaces per turn instead of 1 space per turn, the king on the board by itself is never going to win. It's impossible. So the king is only as strong as it is because of the players around it. So it's like you need to work together. You need to work as a team, and the team leader needs to trust in his team as much as the team needs to trust in the team leader. The trust goes both ways, and I think trust is something that you have to prove yourself in, and it's something that it's mutual. It needs to be mutually given and mutually earned.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I can't think of a better place to say, hey, you know what? It is about trust, whether it's in the Dungeons and Dragons world where we have to trust each other, or in business, or in our families where we have to trust each other, and we have to build our foundations of our relationships on on that trust, that we have each other's backs and we're here for each other, and we want to create a good story together, whether it's in business or in our family or in Dungeons and Dragons. We want to create a wonderful, fun story and a place where we all feel safe and where we can move forward together. Wow. Okay, Max, you have a meeting, and I don't want to take you away from it. You're already late. Right. I'm so sorry. All right.
It's okay.
Okay, I appreciate you giving me this hour of your time. This has been a really interesting conversation. Max Saltzman, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the Doctor's Den. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hope to see you next time.